10 years ago, Diana Butler Bass, religious sociology, undertook a study that that ended with a book that she called Church for the Rest of Us, where she identified for the churches in North America those churches within the mainline Protestant tradition that had found a way to reinvent themselves for this century. She identified 10 characteristics of those churches. One of them was testimony. That word that sends good Presbyterians running for the hills. But I think that you will agree with me that some of the testimonies that we have had in this place have been incredibly powerful, so indicative of the movement of the Spirit, who we are becoming, and where God is still calling us to go. So I invite Brian Gillespie to share some words.
Good morning. I really love that idea of being spirit-blown. It reminded me of one of my favorite novels by W.O. Mitchell, Who Has Seen the Wind? And the main character in that novel is a little boy named Brian. And he spent most of his life searching for meaning. And that's kind of like my story. When Lynn asked me to share my story, I thought about talking about my spiritual journey. And that would take a long time because it basically goes from Anglican to Zen and everything in between, of course. In hearing that, you might think that I was a guy who can't settle down, somebody who couldn't make up my mind, but I see it very, very differently. In all those journeys, I saw it as an attempt to be comfortable, but not in the sense of not having to worry about things, but comfortable in the sense of meaning. This is the place that I belong. And I was always haunted by two very, very nagging questions. And they are, who am I? And why am I here? Well, I discovered that life is more than a journey to an unknown destination. It's also a dance. And that concept of dance has led me to ask not what has drawn me to St. Andrews, but why have I stayed? It was almost a year ago, a year ago in March when Lori and I first came to St. Andrews. And we've recognized all of the things that you see every day in St. Andrews and all the ministries that it does. But to answer the question, why am I still here? Let me use what the Buddhists call going to refuge. And to do that, they embrace something they call the three precious jewels of Buddhism. And I think once I explain these to you, you'll see why I've stayed. The first precious jewel is the Buddha. And that simply means that we need a wisdom teacher to guide us. We need someone who is going to set an example and show us the nature of what our reality actually is. And the Buddha himself says it doesn't need to be me. It could be anybody. But find someone who is going to be your spiritual leader. I've discovered since I've been here that Jesus is that wisdom teacher that can lead us to understanding the reality of the world today. The second precious jewel is called the Dharma. And the Dharma involves the teaching. It's the searching for that truth. It's the reading, the discovery, the questioning to find out what is, in fact, that ultimate truth. Well, actually, in those years before St. Andrews, I've done those two things pretty well. I've been very comfortable in the Buddha and the Dharma. I love to research. I love to discover new things, and that's very exciting to me. But the third one was elusive, the third precious jewel, and that is the Sangha. And the Sangha refers to community. To find a community where you belong with a sense of purpose, where people will offer you guidance, support, and friendship. Well, why have I stayed at St. Andrews? I said very early to Lynn, I think there's something happening here. And it's something very special. And you're actually not alone in the world. If you talk to mystics, indigenous elders, spiritual leaders in other traditions, they will say the same thing. There is something going on in the world spiritually. And I told Lynn it's happening here. As a circle of friends here, I've stayed because I'm called to growth. I'm called to growing myself as an individual to be that better person that I know I can be. I'm drawn to the practices that we do here of inclusivity. And you've heard that many, many times from the front of this church. And the concept of shared leadership, where we're all invited to be a part of what is happening here. That has been part of my reason to stay. And more recently, because of the new and expanded vision that I see coming down the pipes, I'm not a person who likes to just read. I'm a doer, and I like to be involved, and I like action. And when I read what has been presented to us this past week, I get very, very excited. And it's an opportunity to put the teachings that we've learned, whether they're from Buddha or Jesus or someone else, into practice. We can live in a community where we can actually practice and not just talk about those things. And the fifth thing, of course, is because of you. You are also caring, compassionate, talented, interesting. Yes. And the first three words that drew me here, curious, creative, and courageous. That's why I've stayed at St. Andrews. This week in my contemplation, I came across a poem by another Tom. His name is, and I'll probably get the name wrong, Thomas Banyakia, and he's a Hopi elder. And the last line of the poem is really, really important. And the poem is called, "The Ones We Have Been Waiting For." You have been telling the people that this is the 11th hour. Now you must go and tell the people that this is the hour. And there are things to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in the right relationship? Where is your water? Know your garden. It's time to speak your truth. Create your community. Be good to each other. Do not look outside yourself for a leader. There is a river flowing now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel they are being pulled apart and will suffer greatly. Understand that the river knows its destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river. Keep your eyes open and our heads above water. And I say, see who is in there with you. Hold fast to them and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to an end. The time for the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in sacred manner and in celebration. We are all about to go on a journey. And the last line is, we are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the ones we have been waiting for.